Tiffany, you want to start?
Tiffany Hughes, I'm the mayor of the village.
Okay. Diane Schramm, I'm council president. Eric, you're
Eric
up.
Fisher, city planner.
Okay.
Mark Bruger, council person.
Joseph Girl, council person.
Joseph Curl, and Brian Wolf was on mute. No heary, Brian Wolf.
No, it's Mark who's on mute.
No,
Mark.
Brian's on mute.
Brian is talking, but I don't know that he's on mute, but he's talking and he's not, you're not hearing him.
I'm on mute, but that's because I already said hi and then was going quiet.
Sure. And Councilman David McNamara there.
Hello, gentlemen. Ma'am.
Hello.
And here comes Tony.
And okay. Tony just entered, Tony Benedetti. He's our council person as well. And who do we have from Garmann?
I'm Eric Baltzell, CEO and principal.
Ted Muselowitz, project manager and director of our Columbus office.
And I'm Shira Elder, landscape architect.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, now that we've done that, I think we're gonna let Garmann go ahead and start with overview, or however you wanna arrange it. You know what we're interested in hearing about, and we'll let you go for it.
Great, I'm gonna share my screen if I could.
Sure. I hope you can.
Everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, we appreciate you sending the agenda over ahead of time. So we've put a presentation together we believe covers all the points. But thank you first and foremost for having the opportunity to even present to you and talk about your project. With you tonight, we're the key people within the team. We have Shira that's going to lead the site design. Ted will be your point person as project manager, managing our team and the point person with you, and myself as executive principal oversight. Again, our agenda covers everything that you sent us to cover. We did take the liberty to change the order of a couple things. We want to dive right into your project. We really believe the client comes first. Your project's what's most important, so that's what we would like to start with and focus on. And Ted did have an opportunity to get over to your facility a few times and talk to Eric, and has a pretty good understanding, at least on a basic level, of what you're looking for.
Okay, great.
So Eric said, I'm Ted Muselowitz. I'm the project architect and lead designer for this project. You can call me Ted, that's fine. There'll be no quiz on my last name. And as Eric also said, we had a chance to talk with Eric Fisher and meet on site, walk the site a few times actually, and also go over all the material that you've had on the website and get a little bit idea of the process you've been through so far. So you've done a lot of work on this project already. So I think we understand we need a full range of design services here. We're going to start by getting a set of fresh eyes on all that material and the process, starting from the beginning of process, but build off of the work you've done so far.
Perfect.
Good. We know from the material that we really need to look at the full range of options here. How to renovate the existing building, different ways of expanding on it, as well as just a complete new build and a demolition or repurposing of the existing structure, that all options are on the table and that we need to evaluate all of them. So, and that kind of goes to our first potential challenge here is managing the budget constraints of the project. So I think we know a little bit about that, and being able to evaluate that as we move through the project and the different arrangements is going to be one of the critical factors in that, and it's going to inform how we approach the design. In terms of the building itself, as I said, we've been out there. The multiple levels certainly do provide a challenge for addressing ADA accessibility issues and also getting the most utilization out of that space in the most efficient way. So that's something, as we work through the renovation layouts, will be one of the critical factors. And then one of the other things that we identified after being out there a few times is we're increasing the footprint of this building, and this Minerva Park in general, and this site in particular, has a specific character and is a residential scale to it. And I think we want to make sure that as we expand this building, that we're cognizant of that, and we don't overwhelm the residential character or fight with it in any way. So about Garmann Miller, we've been working with municipalities on these kind of buildings since the founding of the firm in 1993. A few of them, the municipalities, cities, and villages that we've worked with are listed here. And we're going to walk through a couple of the more recent projects that we think are applicable a little bit to what you're working with here. The first one was moved into this year. It's the Village of Arcanum Municipal Building and Police Building. This was a replacement building for a similar combined structure. So we've got a police bay and the police dispatch station, municipal offices, and they're joined at the council chambers. We can run through some of the things that we've developed with them here for the interior of the space. It's not so much a lessons, or it's what we have done differently here, but a lessons learned on this. Like you may be aware that there's some recent requirements added to Ohio law for storm shelters for emergency services. This was really the first building that we worked through those details on. And so understanding how the construction works, how we need access to it, what the hardware arrangements need to be. As I said, we worked through that here. That's experience that we're taking into the next time we do this. So, the next building is I think is really applicable to the situation you have here as this New Bremen police and EMS building. The existing building was actually it was police, EMS, and municipal community building, similar to what you have. And our scope was originally to renovate that building. As we started working through programming, we quickly realized that that was not going to be possible on the site they had. So we helped them identify some similar properties. They settled on this one, which is actually adjacent to their current building, to build a standalone police and EMS station here. So we've got some police bays, some EMS bays. We worked through those same storm shelter details here with a little more experience this time. And there's some expansion built into this too for some additional space where we can have some additional sleeping quarters if the EMS should expand. One of the things we found when they moved into this is there's a training component to the EMS space. And they found right away that they probably could have used more training space. So we are actually looking at renovating the original building now to be an expanded municipal building, and we'll probably look at incorporating some additional training space there.
This is Shira, and I'm going to talk a little bit about community spaces. This is St. Michael's Hall, which is adjacent to the church. And we did the renovation in addition to this. We added a new vestibule, entry vestibule, coat closet, renovated the restrooms, and created plazas that are used a lot, different options, very flexible spaces. The ADA component here, you can see that we added, we have steps, and then there's a very nice ramp in back. But the whole space is very welcoming and friendly. So we really enjoyed working on that one. One of the things we wish we had done was once the owner saw how nice the wood and the stone looked together. They wanted to run more of that inside. So that ended up actually costing more because that decision wasn't made until later on in the game. So that. This is the Barbara Cox Center down in Dayton, and the building you see there is a learning lab. It's also a community area where it's rented out by for showers and weddings, that type of thing. And then the lower level where the greenhouses are is a production facility and greenhouses. So we needed to connect the two together and make it very aesthetic so that people for weddings and things could go there. We added trellises on along the greenhouses. We added handicap accessibility with ramps that you can see kind of on either side, and then handicap accessible planting spaces as well underneath those trellises.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our process and how we'd approach this project, I guess, and work through it. We'd start off with a kickoff meeting with all the stakeholders, which you'll help us determine. It may just be the people who are on this call. But what we really want to establish there is the lines of communication, who we need to go through to schedule meetings and those sorts of things. If there's public meetings that we need to keep in mind as we work through the process and what that interaction is going to be. So once we kind of establish that, we'll move right away. We'll bring a full team of all disciplines, plumbing, mechanical, electrical, tech, out to the site to document the building so we know we have a detailed idea of what we're going to need to do to the building and how that's going to inform our design going forward. And then we're going to interview all the user groups, which you'll be helpful in identifying those. I think it sounds like some of that's already happened, but I think we want to revisit that. And I think it's important that we get a document in place that we can all agree on for those priorities going forward. From that, we'll develop options, design options for the stakeholder review, and we'll do a round of updating those. And at that point, probably we'll be able to tie some schematic budgets to those. We'll develop those a little further as we move into the process until we finalize the plan and sort of get a direction for how we're going to bid it out at the end of the process. I did want to touch on the user interviews and the programming piece a little bit. This is an example of a written program that we did for a smaller project at Ohio State, but I wanted to put this up to talk about why we think it's important to have this document. First of all, it gets to be a written document that all the stakeholders can agree upon, and it obviously tells us what spaces we need, how big they are, how big they ought to be, but it can also tell us details about them, like whether they need to be together, separate, what they need to be adjacent to, whether they need separate entrances, even down to what kind of furniture we need to accommodate as we design those spaces. So that can be really useful for us as we work through design, especially as we're working through budget options, looking for maybe opportunities to co-use space and things like that. And we can attach priorities to this document as well so that we know we absolutely have to do this, this, and this, and maybe these are some things that we can maybe look at alternatives to accommodating in the plan. So even though I think all that information is going to inform how we look at adding on to or designing the building, we did start to look at the site and how we might add on to the existing building.
Yeah, we created a couple different options, just talking amongst ourselves and throwing around some ideas. This is a staggered plan where we can do phased construction around the existing building. What we really like about this is the public entrance being separated from the police and EMS service entries. And having those vehicles adjacent to the police as well. This one's nice because it utilizes the topography and creates very nice views for everyone.
So this would be a good option as if we're looking at phasing, because we could be working at one end of the building, still have access to the other end of the building, and then reverse that arrangement. And here I think we're utilizing the levels here, but we wouldn't necessarily have to worry about connecting levels inside the building by an accessible means.
This is option 2, where we looked at maybe having the police building actually separated from the rest of the building. This one, the mayor's court and community room, that could be a new build or renovation. It does still separate those entrances, the public from the service entrances, and separates those pedestrians as well, which is really important. This one, the third one, is the centered community center or mayor sandwich. So this one, we have the police actually separated on the side with a secure entry point for both the vehicles, you like that, the vehicles and the police entrance, and then the mayor's court and community room sharing open space, and then the lower EMS entry.
And this is where,
Yeah.
though we didn't really show it, if we were looking at a standalone building, the first place we'd look at is kind of where this addition is here to that, the level area that's to the north of the existing building, that we could build a new structure there while the existing one's in place, and then redevelop the existing building site once the new building's up and running.
Lots of different options.
Obviously, we said from the beginning that managing the budget constraints is going to be one of the critical factors here. So a little bit about our approach to cost estimating. Because we do have all disciplines in-house, we do our initial estimate in-house. We have expertise in each of the disciplines from the engineering staff, architectural staff, and site staff. And we're able to coordinate those pretty closely within our organization. We always then vet that with a third party. That can be an estimating firm, which we've used in the past. It can also be a local construction manager, which we've done in the past as well. So we have some relationships there that we trust to review those numbers, and that can be really helpful. Just that they understand kind of what the local supply and demand is and what the local labor market's like. And that's certainly been the last year or so, that's been a critical factor in understanding what those local requirements are, those local factors are.
So this is our whole team here in the picture. We do have 2 offices, Minster and Columbus. As we've talked about through the presentation, we are a full service firm, having not only the architecture, but the engineering, the landscape, site design, interior design, and even technology design in-house. We also have a team of construction administrators that go out on job sites and oversee construction with the contractor. Your project is served out of our Columbus office, and within this project team, every discipline is out of Columbus. And as mentioned, Ted is leading your project as the project manager, but he's also the lead designer and architect on your project.
So a little bit about me as the lead designer, I guess. I've been working in the Columbus market for almost 25 years. So I've got design and project management experience on a wide variety of projects, all sizes, public and private, mixed use of all kinds. Specifically to your project, I've done office work, police work, and municipal assembly spaces. But I think the big aspect here is that kind of our approach to design is that might be the lead designer, but we have a full team of people who are informing that design. So I'm as much the design coordinator as I am the designer. Our whole team has a design philosophy whereby we want to listen to our clients, listen to you, and understand your vision and help you to realize your vision for the project. So we don't have the solution in our back pocket that we're going to whip out and tell you that's what we can do for you. We want to be your partner in this and develop the solution with you together. That's our expertise.
And whenever you look at us as a whole, as a company, and what the principles that guide us, you really have to go back to our founding. And you can see here in the picture, these are our two founding principals, Bruce Miller and Brad Garmann. And really the philosophy they had when they started the company is what they've instilled in us, and it's carried all through in our almost 30 years of existence. And that's really focused on a high level of service to you as the client. And it's really a responsive attitude that carries through to the whole project team, no matter who we're dealing with, the contractors, suppliers, and also a focus on a high level of quality. Quality in our documents, making sure there's clarity there, that really quality in everything we do. And in the end, it's about just always doing what is right. And we believe that that philosophy has led to what we see with these metrics, that looking at our performance on average, our estimates are within 2% of bids. We have a very low average on change orders. And what we're probably most proud about is the no claims or lawsuits in the history of the firm. And that's not because there aren't things that come up. That's kind of how in construction, you're going to have issues that pop up, unforeseen things. But really the key is having that responsive attitude, addressing an issue right from the beginning, working in a collaborative manner with the contractor and with you as the owner to look at what the issue is, come up with a solution, and do that in a timely manner so it doesn't become bigger than it needs to be. So just to kind of wrap up why we believe we're the best partner for you, we touched on that full service quite a bit, but that as we go through options with you, design options, we have all the different disciplines looking at what the impact is. If we move this here, if we add this there, how does that impact all the pieces and parts within the project? Having that in-house makes it very effective. We feel like we have a good handle on costs, and 90% of the work we do is in the public sector, so we understand having those budgets that you have to work within and be very cost conscious. And just the listening to you, really understanding what your needs are, and then delivering a vision that meets those needs. So with that wraps up what we had. We would welcome any questions or any further discussion.
Okay, does anyone like to start? Any questions?
I had one question about the storm shelter requirements. That's something that I hadn't. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
It's generally gets into the structure of the building that it needs to be, that a portion of the building based on your EMS and law enforcement personnel, like that's the number of people you've got is determining the size, and that portion of the building needs to be designed to a higher structural load to withstand a storm.
Yeah, I think that's been in place since about 2017. It's for first responder facilities. The standard is that it needs to withstand a F5 tornado, which I believe is 250 mile-an-hour winds. So it's a substantial, to the structure, it's very substantial what we have to do. But you're looking at the occupancy of the facility, and you have to create a space that the entire occupancy could fit within and is protected by that fortified structure.
So I know we had this discussion previously. I don't know what you and Eric have talked about, but we did discuss the fact that at any given time, you might be talking about, as far as EMS and police, 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a quick question. You, for Mr. Eric and Ted, you gentlemen were involved with the Auglaize County Courthouse, I believe, and the new municipal building across the street in Auglaize County?
Yeah, it's the administration building, yes.
Yeah, so for the members of the council and anyone present. I am personally familiar with the restoration work and the new build work that this group has done, and it is very, very good quality on both regards. So
Thank you.
I can say that from personal experience in the Northwestern Ohio area.
Thank you.
And the handicap accessibility in that was very well done, I thought. Nice.
I
nice
can't
job.
I can't attest to that, but I'm sure it was. I have a degree in history before I into my current line of work, and the restoration of that courthouse was beautiful. So
Thank you.
I have a question, if I may. I'm Councilman Curl. The pandemic has literally changed the world overnight. Of course, there's certain things to do with air purification and things, you know, that are probably all going to be seeing new standards, and there may be mandates of old optional methods. I don't know what you come across on that from the architectural end of it in terms of how you see design of space. In the past, we have had a small room that you're aware of with 100 people in it. We also have some people that think it should remain that way. That given, what do you see changing in architectural design or layout as a result of this pandemic? It doesn't seem like it's going to go away any time too fast.
I would say I'm actually working through this right now on a small renovation in it's a school in Columbus, but I think the governing organization for HVAC is called ASHRAE, and they haven't actually passed any rules yet, but they've developed some sort of standard. So I would see our fresh air requirements going up for new construction. We're also looking at adding UV filters and ionizing filters in front of mechanical systems to clean the air. So I think you're going to see higher levels of filtration required. And I think I don't really see at least so far, I haven't really seen the kind of size requirements changing. That may be something that we look at in the future in terms of how many people need to be accommodated in the space. But I can see a higher priority being placed on the technology, being able to have the capacity to video stream things and that. And we do have a technology department in-house that's looking at those things daily.
Yeah,
Well, because we're a public building, then for example, in certain hospitals and things, they're retrofitting now with ultraviolet lights. They can run for 8 hours a day when people aren't in the space, and literally sterilize spaces. But filters, this virus is, I think, 0.03 microns in diameter.
That's actually how the ionization process works, is that, I guess, to try to make it, to simplify it a little bit, it uses electrostatic pressure to attach things to the virus to make it large enough to be caught in filters.
Oh, so you have an electrostatic filter you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say also that we've all seen the barriers go up. Some of them have been put up in a temporary fashion, but you're probably going to see more of that as a permanent install, especially when you do have areas where you are interacting with the public. More of those barriers probably will be more of a permanent thing that you'll see in the future.
Well, that's what I would envision, given all the things we've tossed around, would be something whereby some of the larger spaces, you know, could be utilized for different purposes. You know, they have like moving partitions and things like that. Our mayor needs a good council space. We need a good council space. So they need a good conference room. We're talking classroom. It's going to all be in the same area, I think.
Yeah, I
We've
think,
been trying to utilize outdoor spaces as well, so that
yeah,
people,
that's a good idea. Yeah.
meetings outside, properly spaced. So that's been very helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very wet back.
What other general questions? Anybody?
with regards to all these new advancements you've been talking about, the increase in filtration, the more permanent installation of barriers in public spaces. Seeing as you guys are very much on the ball with the anticipation of these changes, could we reasonably expect these to be factored in a build for us?
We would be looking at all options, yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some cost implications for that. And kind of because of the environment we're in, the supply and demand, it's pretty hard to tie down what those cost implications are now, but that's something we
It's understandable. Everybody's trying to get new glass and new filtration.
Glass is very.
Glass is hard to get right now.
And one last question for the
Space Suit's on
landscaping.
back order.
Excuse me, David, what was that?
One last question
They
for
said the space
landscaping.
suits are
Hold
on
hold
back
it,
order.
Joe, just say it. Dave wants to finish and then you can go.
Okay.
One last question for landscaping. What would be what do you guys typically use for landscaping? Do you use native plants? Do you use, things like that?
On the
or-
client. Sometimes we have clients who have wanted meadows and prairie restorations. Schools want no maintenance at all and just want little balls of shrubs. So it's I know it's totally dependent on the wants and needs of the owner, what they're able to do.
Wonderful, wonderful. You're familiar with native environmental
Yes.
restoration. That's all I needed. I'm done. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Okay. Unstable. Are we? Am I back? I know Zoom was having trouble today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
I guess
they
you
were.
can grow. You can grow too fast, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's an opportunity, but boy, I tell you. All right.
Yeah, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
6 months ago, we didn't even know what Zoom was. So
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish we didn't know what it was.
Yeah, the company I work for, we were all about getting more people to work from home, and you couldn't get Nationwide or Cardinal Health. You couldn't get any of the big locals here to even talk about that. Just didn't want to talk about work from home. And so now there you go. All right. So let's see, in terms of our agenda then, I guess, it sounds like you've said all the right things. I liked your different examples of possible layouts or building layouts. I mean, those are all very practical. Was that? Someone talked, I think I didn't hear.
I think it was somebody's background noise.
Oh, okay. So anyway, we're very, I don't know that Eric mentioned it again, but, we have put out there a very challenging budget of like 1.4 million as a sort of our, and we know from our past exercises that this is a hard do. I do like the buildings you showed us, showed that you were listening though, and that the Arcanum, is that it? Arcanum, Ohio and New Brennan, those are examples of practical buildings, a lot of frills, but not nice, but not over the top, with floor to ceiling glass and all that kind of stuff, which is great. We need practical, we need to try to stay within budget, and we may need, who knows, we may need to suggest kind of a phasing in. I'm not sure where we're going to land on this. We're having trouble though with wishes and wants versus needs. And so walking through, just confirming everybody's, as your grid is, which is I need one of those or I wish one of those. We just need to get those things straight so we can put together the most practical thing we can so that we can actually, get something done. Is there anything else about this building is challenging? As you say, you mentioned the ADA, you mentioned the multiple levels, and all in agreement on all of those things. But I think that what did you think about the lot? It seems to me the lot itself, the land that we have to work with and the land it sits on is also a bit challenging due to the overhead utility wires, et cetera. Any other concerns about that?
I mean, it's something that we'll consider as we kind of look at overall layouts, but I would say overall, I mean, it's an interesting site. You certainly, unlike some of the examples we showed, I think you have the ability to do what you need to do on that site.
And it's beautiful, so.
Yeah, it is. I think it's exciting because it can make for an interesting project.
I would say that the one variable here that may not have been mentioned is that whether we'll have an EMS or not in the future.
I know Eric, but back when I first met with Eric in February, I know that came up. So
It's
that's
still
certainly,
up in the air.
yeah.
Hopefully we'll, it's been, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's been very, very painful wait and lobbing the ball back and forth in terms of who's providing what and for what and what cost and all that. So, and it's still up in the air because the chief of police, the chief of fire is now gone in the new interim, and still trying to work out what our role might or should or shouldn't, doesn't need to be. So hopefully that will resolve itself.
Well, that's something maybe that as we look at phasing that should be considered, is if the future of the EMS is up in the air a little bit, that might be a later phase.
Well, exactly. And that's what we talked about last time. One of your designs had the EMS, a couple of them had the EMS tagged off the side I mean, I think there's just ways to, if we have to, we can have that as a separate, there's some possibilities there. We talked about.
I really enjoyed option 1, the stage renovation with the EMS and the police in the kind of bottom area. I could see that being, in that phase discussion as we figure out the future of EMS does.
Or there could be a architectural design based upon EMS still existing there, and a option for a conversion design into another type of space, already planned for if we lose it altogether.
Absolutely.
Right. All right then. And if you are selected to move forward, what else do you have on your plate right now, and when could you start working with us?
I think we'd set up the initial meetings as soon as we were under contract. So we are, as a company, where we've got a couple school projects that we're wrapping up, getting to bid in the next month or two here, but that actually work out pretty well to transition into the design phase and then into production once we were getting those out the door. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I think if anybody has anything else, otherwise I think we're a wrap. Yes?
I did think of one there at the end when you were mentioning that. Excuse me. So and I understand this is probably not something you can answer, but you can at least perhaps ballpark it for me. We decide to go with you. We do our 3 readings. We give it a month. That puts us, we're in late October, and we have a contract with you. How long could you estimate or would think it would be before we could start putting some shovels or hammers to anything? How long does that process normally take with you guys?
I think Eric can weigh in on this too. I think the quickest that we could work through this process to actually getting to going out to bid would be about 4 months, but I think it's probably longer than that depending on public feedback and whether we're doing public meetings, and that certainly adds a lot to the process there. But I do think we could target, based on that kind of start date, I think we could target late spring, early summer shovels in the ground.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's dependent on you all as well, where there's some interaction there with getting the feedback from you, presenting you with ideas then from that feedback, and there's interaction back and forth. But I think what Ted said is a reasonable timeline. We could, if we could certainly be under construction by spring.
So a lot of it's how much we want to argue about what color we want the walls to be and where we want doors put.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? All right. Well, thank you, Eric and Tad. And is that Sheila?
Sure.
Sarah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
all.
much.
We appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
We get an intermission?
Hang on. Who else still on here? 1, 2, 3. At the end of the next one, and this is up to you guys, especially if it's short, 45 minutes. Do you guys want to talk about both ones for 5 minutes at the end of them? Do you guys not want to discuss them tonight? Do you guys just to put our thoughts together or no?
Discuss what? I'm sorry. I missed